SkiBallin Show podcast, the football podcast where you get to know your X's and O's from head to toe. It is week 4. It is after the combine, so let's go through some of the combine prospects that I went through. I'm going to go over free agency next week here on the podcast as well. So we still are going into this off-season mode, and there's a lot of things happening right now. Now we're going to start with the combine. Products that came after that, and the stuff that really shined out there in Lucas Oil Stadium. And then I'm going to go over the free agency stuff because pretty much it's all done, but I do want to give it another week or so to talk about it because there's still some signings going on, some trades going on. But we'll talk about all of that in next week's show as well. But for now, it is combine time, so we're going to start off the first day with the O-line. First off, we're going to start off already with Garrett Bradbury from Stanford. He definitely had, to me, the best combine out of all the linemen. He was very solid. He's definitely going to be a solid offensive line starter for whoever drafts him. This is a great draft pick for any team that needs an offensive line. I'm looking at you, the Giants. Well, actually, I wouldn't say the Giants because the Giants need a quarterback more than an offensive line right now. And plus, they got Kevin Zeitler from free agency just recently, so they really helped out there. Anyway, but that still is a great draft pick there for any team that needs an offensive lineman. Garrett Bradbury definitely going to be a starting plug-in at center. Andre Dillard is the second one I liked from the offensive lineman. He's from Washington State. He had a very solid combine. I like what I saw from him. He does best with pass protecting, and he probably is like the best pass protecting offensive tackle of the entire class as well. He actually had a 4.96 40-yard dash, and he was the best out of the entire lineman. So that's a really good 40-yard dash time for an offensive lineman. Now, obviously, it might not be translated too much. Obviously, you don't need speed at too much as an offensive lineman, but it could definitely help you out in some circumstances. Jonah Williams of Ohio State is the third one. Definitely liked him. But many believe he does need to switch from the outside to the interior as an offensive guard instead. But he also did have a solid combine. He still is a good draft pick for any team. They could also put him as kind of like in a backup role, maybe switch him out from time to time with an experienced offensive lineman in the league. But I still do like Jonah Williams. I think he has potential to shine in the NFL. Then I also like Juwan Taylor from Florida, though he did have a hamstring issue during workouts. So that did kind of hamper a little bit on his workout that day, but he still had very good technique with his feet despite that hamstring issue. He really looked good on some of those drills, but he did look a little shaky, of course, and a little slow because of that hamstring issue, but he's still a pretty good offensive lineman that someone can develop. Maybe put him on the bench for a year, maybe get some experience more for practice, and try to plug him into an offensive lineman next year. Connor McGovern from Penn State, I like him. He had a solid combine, but I do think he's a project kind of guy. But he still looked pretty good on tape, and he looked pretty good on that combine workout as well. And then Chris Kinstrom, I really put Chris Kinstrom from Boston College here because I think he's a really Patriots kind of esque offensive lineman. I'm hearing that a lot from other analysts, such as Daniel Jeremiah even said this guy definitely is like a Patriots offensive lineman. If the Patriots would definitely draft somebody like of his caliber from Boston College, Chris Kinstrom, and he did have a pretty solid combine as well. But again, kind of in the late rounds of the draft. But I think the Patriots, if they take him, he could develop very well under that system. Then Max Sharping from NIU, I did like him. He gets beat by bull rushes sometimes, but does well against speed, but does well better actually against speed rushes. So he has that speed and the strength to keep up with his pace, but he has a hard time with bull rushes. He is a project lineman, I will say. He is very good at still standing his ground with those speed rushes. And actually, in this league, you almost have to really block more speed rushers at this point in the league. The way it's shifting with defensive linemen, you almost have to block speed a lot more than bull rushes now. There's not as much strength now on the edges, specifically on the edges, that more than there is with speed. I mean, you already look at the guys like Khalil Mack, like Von Miller. Those guys will try to get around you more than through you instead. But they also are talented enough that they could do both. So it's more kind of advisable for offensive linemen now to try to beat speed rushes more than anything. So that does it for the offensive linemen. Now we're going to go into the running backs of that later that day. To give you kind of an idea, I did write the 40-yard dashes for most of these running backs, and to give you an idea of what we're looking for. The average 40-yard dash time for the top 10 running backs of the NFL just this past year, including Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, and Adrian Peterson, is about a 4.47 40-yard dash time. So I'm going to start now here with Myles Gaskin, University of Washington. He is a very shifty running back. He's elusive, and he has a great breakaway speed. He's able to go run outside and catch the ball from the backfield as well, and he broke many, many records at the University of Washington. He had a total of 900 more carries, and he has a Christian McCaffrey kind of built to him, is what some analysts are saying. He had a 4.59 40-yard dash, though. Not too fast, but he is very elusive, so I do like him a lot. Then there's Josh Jacobs from Alabama. I did like him. He did have a groin injury, though, that he could not compete in the combine. He does really want to badly compete, though. He actually said in the interview before that it kills him that he could not showcase why he's a talented running back. But I say that because he's a big still a prospect to look for in this draft. He could definitely still be a project running back that teams could take. But teams will definitely draft him as a backup project running back behind an established running back for that team. But he could still be worked on very well. Next up is Damian Harris from Alabama. He was a good starting running back for Alabama, but he was very used often with Josh Jacobs, so he with Josh Jacobs were really kind of 50-50. He did come out as a starter, though, but he still had a pretty solid combine, 4.49 on the 40. It had a smooth bag drill. I like what he did there, and he has pretty good hands catching the ball out of the backfield in his catching drill, so he was pretty good. I think he could definitely be a good second running back that a team could use, try to develop him into a starter. Then Alex Engel from Wisconsin, he's more of a fullback. He came into the combine kind of pretty much as a fullback too. I like him because we hardly ever see fullbacks now enter this league at this point. Everyone kind of uses a secondary running back. There isn't really any true fullbacks out there. I do like Alex Engel because I am a big fan of those big fullbacks because they really can help out in your blocking game. And he's actually pretty fast. Alex Engel has a 4.49 40-yard dash. That's pretty fast for a fullback. And he had pretty good hands on catching the football. So I think Alex Engel can actually be a good fullback for teams to use. He could be kind of like the Kyle Juszczyk that the 49ers had, and that the Ravens used him very much well in the backfield as well. So he could be kind of like that, where he can block well and he can catch well out the backfield when the team needs him to. Then there's Miles Sanders. I like him from Penn State. He has quickness. He has a 4.49 40-yard dash too. He got compared to Alvin Kamara throughout the combine and throughout some of the analysis I've been seeing, that he uses his hands and a lot of his physical features to have a lot of elusiveness in his running style, and he had a really good combine out of the running back class. LJ Scott from Michigan State, I like him. He's not going to be a true running back. He's going to be more of that running back that you're going to use on shotgun formations, on third down, stuff like that. He can definitely be used in one of those little vertical scheme offenses, so he can be a good running back for that kind of style. I mainly put him in there because I kind of want to see a little bit more variety from running backs, and he kind of is one of those guys that, even though he's not going to be a true starting running back, he's definitely could still make an impact for whatever team he's on in the passing game. Finally, in the running backs, I have Devin Motor Singletary from Florida Atlantic. He is a great runner. He's a great runner with elusiveness. He's very quick. He's not a speedster. He only had a 4.66 40-yard dash. But he's not exactly fast, but he's quick. And he's quicker. He's a lot more quicker than he is fast. And he's very good in tight spaces and can get away. But he just needs that second gear, is what I saw from him on film. But he does good in the backfield, makes good catches, just takes a little bit of time to change direction. But overall, very solid combine from him. He could definitely be a good running back to work on as well. Now we move on to the second day with tight ends, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. We're going to start with the tight ends. Noah Fant, of course, and TJ Hawkinson, the biggest ones, both from Iowa. Noah Fant is an athletic freak. He has smooth hands, and he really answered the question of if he could catch the ball easily in the combine. He did a really good job. He had a 4.51 40-yard dash that's actually faster than some wide receivers right now in the NFL, so that's very good for a tight end like him. He's also a superb run blocker, so they could definitely use him in the pass in the running game. He's almost like an extra offensive lineman, is what some scouts will put. And he had a good blocking drill as well, and it even had great hands in the catching gauntlet drill as well. T.J. Hawkinson from Iowa, he's kind of the opposite of Noah Fant. He's a little more slower, 4.71 40-yard dash, but he can also block very, very well on the run. Even though he's a little slow, he is a great route runner, and he is more quick than fast, and he has that quickness at the top of his route, and he knows how to create separation, and his athleticism allows him to break away from tackles as well when he gets them. And he does have very good hand-catching ability, goes through tackles that he is given. With his blocking game, I really liked his blocking drill. He just drives those blockers. He drove those blockers that he had easily, and on film he looked really cool. And he also frames the ball and extends to it when he catches the ball. He has very nice hands. Just needs a little more speed, though, but that's not exactly what you draft T.J. Hawkinson for. You're drafting him more as a blocker, but also knowing that you can rely on him in the passing game as well. Kendall Blanton from Missouri, I like him as a project tight end. He's a huge tight end for his size. He definitely can be used for good blocking. He's a big frame with a big catch radius. He's going to be very slow on his routes, but is definitely can go up there and go get it for his team. Then I also have Irv Smith Jr. from Alabama. He's aggressive in his run game, blocking very good, and the bag drills that he was participating in. He's also a pretty good route runner. He's a very big moving tight end, and he makes catches nicely toward the sidelines and can tiptoe for more extra yards. He loves to catch the ball and get as much yards as possible. Just needs to track the ball better in the air is what I kind of saw in the combine during his catching drills. Then the last one I have for the tight ends is Josh Oliver from San Jose State. I think he's that one little gem that's going to go in the later rounds, but I think if a team develops him well, he could be a pretty good starter for them. He's a long striding runner for a tight end. He had a 4.64 40-yard dash. He had a pretty good blocking drill, good hands catching. He made pretty much look easy, and he even had a one-handed catch during the combine. So very nicely done. He is very athletic with his routes. Then we go to the wide receivers. I'm going to save the quarterbacks for best for last of that day. And, of course, we can't go without saying that DK Metcalf definitely destroyed the combine. He just was unbelievable. This 6'5", 225-pound guy, definitely one of the pretty much the best wide receiver prospect in this draft, had a 40.5-inch vertical, 4.33 40-yard dash. He's a crazy athletic freak for his size. He has strong, and on top of it, strong hands, great gauntlet drill, smooth route runner, and best receiver definitely of this class. And he's very hard to cover. In the film, you'll see that he just slaps the hands out of the defensive back's way, and he just gets on top of the DBs easily on some of his routes. Then I also have Riley Ridley from Georgia, great route runner. Doesn't have the best speed, but can be improved on with this 4.59 40-yard dash, but he had a good gauntlet drill. Definitely didn't sway from the line too much and had great hands. And, of course, when you're the brother of Calvin Ridley, I kind of expect you to have those great hands as well. So that's very good for him. Then there's A.J. Brown from Ole Miss. He's a quick catcher. He's a slot receiver who can catch quick slants. The brother of Antonio Brown definitely looks like he has that same kind of Antonio Brown kind of play to him. He can make those extended throws, though. If you can line him up on a slant route inside, like as a slot receiver, he can go up and he can just go out and go get those balls. He has very smooth hands, easy sideline catches during his drills, nice gauntlet drill as well, and he had a very strong hands and good ball tracking as well. Paris Campbell from Ohio State, liked him. He is super fast, 4.31 yard, 40-yard dash. He's also going to be used as a slot receiver, but can be used effectively in sweeps and end arounds as well. Explosive on his routes, and had very clean running routes when he was during the combine there. Then there's Keyshawn Johnson from Fresno State, the mid-conference wide receiver. He makes plays. He's that kind of guy that will produce for an offense. He's not going to be physical guy. He's not going to be that guy that's going to be like looked to all the time, but if you look his way, he's going to make plays. He's very elusive and athletic. He's not a big speedster, so he really relies on his route running ability and his ability to make those catches, and he does know how to trick his cornerbacks when he faces them. So he's going to be one of those guys that you're going to have to kind of work with him to see how he does against DBs in the NFL, but other than that, you can definitely work on a wide receiver like him. Then the last two ones I have are Deebo Samuel from North Carolina State and Miles Boykin from Notre Dame. Deebo Samuel from North Carolina definitely pops up on film. He is strong, physical, and will go up and contest for a ball at any time. He's kind of built like a running back for his size. He is huge. And he has a good extra gear. He has a great extra gear to get back away from those defenders that are making him. And he makes the deep ball look easy. He's a great runner. He has smooth hands and didn't sway from the line too much on the gauntlet drill as well. He could be a project wide receiver that people can draft him as well. And then Miles Boykin from Notre Dame, I like him. Oh, man, a 43.5-inch vertical jump. Unbelievable. Fun fact, I actually went to the same high school as Miles Boykin. I was actually just a year behind him, so I remember him. Took us to the state championship and won that one for the first time the first time in so many years. That was a great experience to go there as well. Miles Boykin definitely is going to be a kind of a late round guy to take in the draft boards, but he is definitely a good prospect. He is huge. He is a physical wide receiver. Great jump. He definitely will go up there and contest for the ball. He had great tracking ability when the ball was out in the air, and he has very good, strong hands. Overall, pretty good, solid combine for him. Definitely is going to help his draft grade and make them go up in the ranks. That does it for the wide receivers. Now we will go to the quarterbacks. Then we will end it off with the D linemen and the cornerbacks, the defensive backs, I should say, considering that sounds very much like the quarterbacks. Then here's the quarterbacks. Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State. I'm going to get to Kyler Murray in a second, but I'm not going to go too much into Kyler Murray considering he didn't obviously do his combine, so you have to really look at his pro day and how he does it. Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State, obviously 50 touchdowns. That's pretty much unheard of for a guy that in a conference like that. That's very awesome to see. He's a very accurate thrower. He goes through his progressions in offense, which is very good because in most college offenses, they will restrict you to go to one side of the field. But Haskins, on the other hand, goes through all his progressions. He looks from one side of the field. He looks to the other side of the field if something's there. He does it, and like other quarterbacks in the NFL, from top to low, from side to side, to see where the best opening for a throw is. He's definitely not going to be a runner. He had a 5.0 440-yard dash, but again, we don't need exactly big runners. He's definitely going to be the pocket quarterback that we're going to be used to seeing, like Drew Brees and like Tom Brady. So he's definitely going to be drafted as a pocket passer. He had great throws pretty much throughout the entire combine, great out route, great slant route, and he made some of those routes pretty much look easy. It just came smoothly out of his hands. Sometimes it was a little late on his other throws, but other than that, he had very minimal kind of late throws. Everything else just looked very smooth for him. Overall, he had a pretty solid combine day, and it pretty much just showed that to the scouts that this guy is still a very good first-round draft pick for any team out there that needs the quarterback. Kyler Murray, obviously from Oklahoma, did not do the combine workouts because he didn't want to. That's up to him, of course, but he's getting a lot of comparison to Russell Wilson. He protects himself a lot to prevent injury, which I really like to see out of him because that says to me that he takes his health very seriously and he takes the importance of himself to the team to the highest regard. So that's really good for him. And of course, other than that, he's also very accurate. He does amazing jobs slinging the ball. Records left and right. He did a great job with Texas A&M and then going to Oklahoma. Great job for Kyler Murray. Again, just have to look at his pro day and see how he does there instead of the combine. So I'm still glad he chose the NFL over the MLB. It looked like for a second there that he did definitely want to go to the MLB, but he did switch to the NFL and could definitely be a very good quarterback for the rest of his future. But of course, still have to see where that goes for him. Then let's talk about the other guys from the combine. Daniel Jones from Duke, 22 touchdowns, second most in the school's history, 4.81 40-yard dash. He's also going to be like Dwayne Haskins. He's going to be that pocket kind of quarterback. You're drafting him to stay in the pocket, but he can definitely still be athletic enough to make some plays out of the pocket. He has good movement in the pocket like Dwayne Haskins does as well. Some of his slant throws, I saw that he did throw it a little bit high, but other than that, it looked pretty good, and his other throws looked pretty good as well. So some of the timing of his throws looked a little shaky, but still pretty good throws, smooth out of his hands, very nice hands. Just the deep ball needs a little bit better technique. I think some of his deep balls need a little bit more work. But despite that, he still has a great hands. Just need to work on some of those throw techniques. That's all. Drew Lock from Missouri, I liked him. He's also kind of a slow guy. There's not a lot of athletic quarterbacks, like speed-wise, for this draft class, so most of these guys are going to be those pocket passers. Drew Lock, I liked him. His throws are pretty smooth as well. Just needs better placement on some of his throws. He was somewhat late on some of his throws as well. But other than that, some of the rest of his throws looked pretty good. But the one thing I did not like about him is that he does wait for his receiver a little bit too much, which does mean that he will sit in the pocket for a little bit more longer than expected. So he's going to be that project quarterback that if you want to draft him, you're going to have to make sure that he gets the ball out of his hands a lot more quicker than that. Ryan Finley from NC State, I liked him a little bit. He's definitely a second round, a third round quarterback, which the Patriots could actually take to develop, is what I'm hearing. Some scouts would say he's also kind of a Patriots guy. They don't want to be surprised if Finley went behind Brady to get developed and maybe be the quarterback of the future. But other than that, he does have a pretty good throwing arm. Ball comes out fast from his throws and knows how to accurately throw them out. He had nice out route throws. He just needs to throw a little bit more outside for his receivers on some of those routes toward the sideline. Throws slant routes nicely. Throws the dig routes nicely. Just could use a little bit more work on his technique. That's about it. But he's definitely going to be that project quarterback that some teams are going to take. He still looked very good out of that. Then Will Greer from West Virginia. I liked him. He's also a pocket passer. Wasn't too bad on his throws, just needed a better timing of it. I felt like he could be better on some of his throws on the combine, but I feel that his footage in college is a little bit more to look at than his combine day, because I think that's really where he proves how good of a quarterback he is in college. So I think if the scouts that are seeing where Will Greer will fall into the draft, I think it's more important to look at his college film and just maybe even look at his pro day that's coming up instead of the combine day, because that definitely just wasn't his day that time. Just it was a little bit off a little bit, but still had a decent enough combine to know that some scouts are still going to draft him. My last one is Kyle Shermer. He is the son of head coach Pat Shermer. He's a pocket passer as well. Good three-step drop. Could have used a little bit more technique, but he is a pretty well-balanced quarterback. Just needs a little bit more work with his throws, but still just got to keep his eyes in front of the route more because he's waiting for his receiver a little bit more. But other than that, he has a very smooth deep ball. He has a very good throw. He has pretty good timing on some of his throws. Just needs to make sure that he communicates with his receiver very well on the field. All right, so that does it for the quarterbacks. Now let's go into defensive linemen, the edge rushers, the linebackers. This is where the big ones from the combine are in. Dexter Lawrence from Clemson. I'm going to start out with him because he did not work out, but he's obviously one of the biggest prospects as well as far as D lineman goes. So obviously you got to look at his film from Clemson and look at his pro day to see how he does there. Nick Bosa from Ohio State, pretty much the number one guy on some of the draft boards around the league, unless Arizona wants to take Kyler Murray first overall. That's also a possibility, what I've been hearing. But Nick Bosa definitely is pretty much top 5 on most draft boards. He had a great combine, still proved it there. Great 3-bag drill and a coverage drill. He's not going to use it too much, but he was pretty good too on his coverage drills. And he had a nice stride when moving around. He had a pretty good 3-cone drill as well. Quillen Williams from Alabama, definitely also one of the best prospects out here. He's a little slow as a pass rusher, but you're really drafting him to use his technique and his speed because he does a very good job with his technique inside. He did guess a little bit too much with his drills that were, for the coverage drills and stuff like that. He was just a little guessing too much, but that's really not his strong suit anyway. You're not drafting him for that. He has great footwork. You're really drafting him because of the technique that he has down in the line, and he has an explosive side to him. That as soon as the ball is snapped, he has an explosive side that he can just get right through with any kind of move that he has under his arsenal. But sometimes he will slip a little bit because of that explosiveness, but that sometimes happens. He's super fast with his explosiveness, and his 10-yard split is the reason. It kind of proves that explosiveness right. Then Rashawn Gary, obviously this is another big guy. He's from Michigan. Production was mixed with his athletic ability. That's the only question about him is how much consistency can he make with his athletic ability, because there were at times during the season where he just didn't produce it like he should, but he still is an athletic freak. I mean, he's fast, 4.58 40-yard dash for a lineman. He has a great change of direction, great hip movement, and he makes it look all easy. He has great technique down inside the line as well. He just needs to consistently produce once he gets drafted. Draymond Jones from Ohio State, he had a very nice athletic drills during the day, looked very smooth with his movements and good bag drills as well. Great pushes, great rushes that time as well. Had a pretty good 10-yard split himself. Definitely going to be a good prospect to draft with as well. Christian Wilkins from Clemson, the teammate of Dexter Lawrence, he's also very explosive. He's tough to stop, and he had pretty good off-field drills in the combine, and he has great feet technique inside as well. Montez Sweat from Mississippi State, another big one. He's unbelievably fast for an edge rusher. He had a 4.41-yard 40-yard dash, too. Really shows how explosive he can be, and he had a great bag drill as well. He was super fast in a change of direction. He had great technique. He had an overall really good combine as well. Then we go to the linebackers. Devin White of LSU, sideline-to-sideline guy. He's not too fast, but he is very smooth on his moves, and he looked pretty solid on his combine drills that day. His hands are strong when he's speeding through guys, and so he can go up and do up and under moves as well when he's pass rushing, if he is pass rushing, but he can definitely swallow up any ball carrier around his area code. Devin Bush, of course, the guy is more of a downhill guy to cover, but he is super fast and explosive. He had a great combine day. Definitely one of the best prospects out there. There's not enough words that can describe how athletically amazing Devin Bush is. Definitely going to be a starting guy for anybody that drafts him as well. And then Josh Allen from UK. He had 17 sacks in the SEC. He is a great prospect as well. He's kind of a project guy, but he's a good prospect to draft as well. He's did a great job during the SEC season to produce defensively. Can swallow up a lot of ball carriers as well. And then my last one is Bobby Okereke from Stanford. He is an explosive burst. He's a great inside linebacker material for many teams. He's kind of the gem of the combine for me because he changed the direction very nicely. He has great techniques, and he has very fast hands. I think the only biggest question for him is how he's going to wrap up tacklers and how he is going to be in coverage as well. But he is a very physical linebacker. That does it for that, and now we go to the last prospects with the cornerbacks and safeties. We're going to start off with Greedy Williams from LSU. He had a 4.37 40-yard dash, so he did show a little bit of a speed, but his drills weren't that great. But I believe that it had probably to do with some of the cramps that he was feeling during the combine. He actually decided not to continue the workout mid-workout, actually, after having a lot of other issues and cramps as well. So maybe that might have been a big effect of how his drills went. But unfortunately, we didn't get to see too much of his good technique as we were used to seeing, because a lot of his drills just weren't very good on that day, unfortunately. Kendall Schofield is the other guy I like. He's from Ohio State. He also didn't work for the combine. He tore his pec muscle during bench reps, so he unfortunately did not work out. But he definitely would have been one of the fastest on the field if he did, though. He is a super fast cornerback, and he is disappointed also that he was not able to participate. Byron Murphy, I like him from Washington. He is undersized and just needs a little bit more technique on his hip flip, but he had a pretty clean workout day, and he had a pretty good break drill with the 90-degree break. So he's a pretty good cornerback that you can kind of draft as a project kind of cornerback as well. Sean Bunting from Central Michigan, I like him. He can play inside and outside, so teams that draft him can experiment where he could be. on the field. He's not a big, speedy cornerback, so he uses a lot more of his technique to disrupt the timing and spacing of the wide receiver. He has nice speed though, and he has a great quickness to him. And he had pretty great hands in the gauntlet drill, so he can definitely get the ball out of a wide receiver's hands. Very nice and strong hands to get the ball, to contest for a ball in the air as well. DeAndre Baker from Georgia, I like him a little bit. Just needs a little bit more practice on his pedal drill as well. He was a little too early sometimes with his hip movements. He had a pretty good gauntlet drill though, and some of his workouts were definitely okay, but just definitely could have been better. I feel like his film definitely did him better justice than he did on his combine workout. Just needs to practice a lot of the stuff that he needs to work on. Just maybe just had a little bit of a nervous day that day. And then some of the safeties here. Jonathan Abram, definitely one of the best safeties. He's a freight train on film, and he just closes in on everybody and finishes the ball carrier. Pretty good combine day. He's a hard hitter. I mean, he really reminds me of Kunano Neal from Atlanta. So he's a very physical safety. He's definitely could be a great cover guy, but he could definitely be a hard hitter in the running game as well. Nasir Adelaide from Delaware, he is also a great safety prospect, but he did not work out in the combine because of injury, but he is definitely one to keep an eye on as well as the draft rolls around. See if he can work on his pro day as well because of that. But I hear it's doubtful, but hopefully he can come back. Joanne Williams, I like him from Vanderbilt. I think he's one of those underrated guys. He is unfortunately slow for a safety. He had a 4.65 40-yard dash. He doesn't have the speed for sure, but he is extremely physical and has great ball skills and instincts. So he is going to be that late round kind of project cornerback, but I think he is definitely one of those very physical corners that can be used inside for a great zone coverage kind of scheme. And he had a great job tracking the ball and had good hip movement on his drills as well. Then I also like Chris Boyd from Texas. He's physical, but he's a physical, fast corner. He has both. He has the size and the speed and the toughness. He just has that big build for a corner. Is pretty much all you want from a cornerback. So he has that physical features, but he also has pretty nice technique. His feet are very quick, and he has a very nice hip movements as well to try to get through, to try to keep up with wide receivers. So he is that big physical specimen, but he also complements it with very good technique and very good quickness. David Long, I like him from Michigan. He has fast hip turns. He has very good technique as well, very explosive, and great changes of direction. He's smooth on his turns when he was covering some of the routes, and he does a great job cutting in and cutting back on the routes that he was covering. He just sometimes needs more depth on some of those routes, but other than that, very good footwork, very good technique, and very good at tracking the ball. And then my last one I like is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from Florida. He's an underrated cornerback, but he is going to be one of those nickel cornerbacks, I think, in the NFL. He's a guy that really plays a lot inside, but I think as a prospect, you can definitely draft him for that inside ability because he does a pretty good job doing inside work on a defense. And so that does it for the Combine prospects. Now go to next week with the free agency of the NFL. There's a lot of things that happened, a lot of things to talk about, but we have all of that for you next week. I hope you enjoyed the Combine results, the stuff that I was analyzing a lot. I pretty much went through all the footage throughout the entire week to try to break it down as much as possible. So I'm very interested to see how this will translate into the next mock drafts. I'm going to try to do my own mock draft as well for the first round later on, probably maybe like a week or two before the draft begins, and we'll see what goes on from there. But there's a lot of good draft prospects this year, specifically for defense. So this is definitely a loaded draft as far as defensive athleticism goes. So we have a lot more to evaluate, but for now, I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next week on our free agency talk for the next week's SkiBallin Show podcast. Thank you for listening. We hand the ball over to you. Until next week, we hope you enjoyed.